from Imam al-Ghazali's Ihya Ulumuddin, his magnum opus on the revival of the Islamic sciences. Now, the first part of this chapter, it covers the fiqh, the jurisprudence of fasting. So we're not going to cover that. It's Shafi'i and it'll take time to go over all the rulings. So we'll leave that to your understandings of the fiqh. But we're going to cover the inner conditions and mysteries of the fast that he brings in. There is a great translation by Fitzgerald, I believe, from Fons Vitae. And Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, Imam Ghazali, he says, Bismillah, and I'll read through the text and give some commentary. Know that there are three levels of fasting: the fasting of the common faithful people, the fasting of the elect, and the fasting of the elect of the elect. Now, you hear a lot of people, some people, having a problem with this breaking down the fast into different types. They say that the fast is one, there's only one fast, right? The reward is the same. But this is they miss the point of this categorization. The point of this categorization is to show that there are different approaches to Ramadan and different experiences. And you might have felt that. You might have had one Ramadan that felt amazing. You were moving on all cylinders. You were, making tahajjud, making all of your qiyam. You felt revived. You felt enthusiastic. You felt the Ramadan spirit, as some people say. And there may be other Ramadans that you weren't able to feel that. You felt tired, exhausted, lazy. It's hard to get through your juz. Barely made it to Taraweeh. No khushu', no focus in your prayer. So these different experiences lead us to reflect on what worked for Ramadan and what are we doing that is distracting us and derailing us from our true potential in reaching the merits and the true benefits of this Ramadan and taking proper advantage of it, and what is and what does allow us to get there, right? What are the steps? So he says that there are three types of fast, only in the sense that there are three approaches that one may have to the fast, even though they all share in, of course, the physical fast, which is abstination from all food and drink and sexual pleasure. So he says the fasting of the common people consists in keeping the stomach and private parts from satisfying their desires, as has been detailed above. So in the previous fiqh rulings, that's what fiqh is covering. It covers if you eat this, it breaks your fast. If you do this, it doesn't break your fast. If you eat accidentally, does it break your fast or not? What happens if you eat forgetfully? Right? All of these rulings are covered, right? So that is what everyone shares in, right? You're not fasting if you are eating in the day. The fasting of the elect consists in keeping the hearing, sight, tongue, hands, feet, and all other members of the body free from sin. So this is a fast from sin. So your entire body, you have to protect it from sin, right? So it's not that it's any different than the first fast. It's an additional approach. And this is actually what people usually are looking for when they are approaching Ramadan, because no one's discussing the fact that they are fasting, like physically fasting. Of course, everyone's physically fasting. But they're talking about what spiritual benefits can I gain from the fast? What am I looking to do spiritually that's going to change me? This is it, right? You are avoiding all sin. It's a fast from sin. That has to be your intention. And the fasting of the elect involves the heart. It consists of fasting from worldly concerns and mundane thoughts and completely refraining from focusing on anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is very difficult, but this is the elect of the elect. That's why it's difficult. This is, as he mentions, your entire heart is focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're never losing focus and love and intention. You're never worrying about the dunya. You're never worrying about iftar and reflecting on the iftar. You're never harboring any harsh feelings towards someone. You're never, thinking highly of yourself. All of the diseases of the heart you're refraining from, and anything that's distracting you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why one of the scholars, right, at a level of absolute, it's the infatuation with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says that if I did not see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for a single second, right, for لو غاب عني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لحظة واحدة ما عددت نفسي من المسلمين. For a single second, I didn't see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In everything that I do, I wouldn't consider myself a Muslim. And this is why it returns to the famous principle that the sins or the hasanat, the good deeds of the righteous are the sins of, right, those who have been drawn close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because not every action is the same for everyone, and not every level of piety is the same for everyone. One who has consistently made tahajjud for 40 years straight, for him to just wake up and pray Fajr, right, is a significantly, lowering in his practice, right? You are falling away from a practice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with. That's just, that can even be sinful, right? But for no excuse. And figuratively, it is sinful, right? Figuratively, it is sinful, right, to fall back from a practice that you began. But for one who is barely making Fajr and is struggling, for him to just pray Fajr on time and to consistently make that Fajr, right, is the most that can be expected of him. Right? But it's not the same. You're not going to hold the same standards to everyone. And this is just a self-evident reality that we carry into every part of our life, right? The elite athletes don't have the same standards as the beginners that have never, done anything before. This fast is broken by thinking about anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day. That is, by thinking about anything in this world except what supports the deen and what is provision for the hereafter and not this world. So all of your thoughts in this high degree are focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what's pleasing Him. Right? You might still be going through the motions of a work and doing that, but your heart's not connecting to it. Right? Your heart is using that with a spiritual intention. Right? And that's not easy, right? To go through a job and to work it and to not have any connection with your heart to the salary, to how much you're making, is very difficult, right? For it to be completely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a level that requires tremendous sincerity and focus. So he then says, in fact, the people of the heart say, anyone who's concerned during the day turns into pondering over what he will break his fast with at sunset is committing a sin. For this shows how little trust he has in God's generosity, and how little certainty he has that his provision is guaranteed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we talked about this in the Khatib yesterday, He's promised for us that He will take care of us. He will provide for us. It's guaranteed. He actually swears by Himself in the Quran that He will provide for us. So if one goes through the day reflecting on what they're going to break the fast with, and will I have this, or will I make that, and will it be, right? That is very lowly, right? It's very animalistic, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided it for you, He's guaranteed it for you. So you worrying about it not only shows a lack of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it shows a profound distraction from that which you could be spending your time in focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing things that draw you closer to Him, right? And not worrying about things that are so guaranteed, right? So it's kind of it kind of almost comes down to an unhealthy paranoia, right? Even though it's not, but that's what it looks like, right? Because it's guaranteed. So what are you worrying about? This is why, being on social media it should be avoided in Ramadan. That's obvious. But those who are constantly sharing posts and reels about this iftar or that iftar, it's not good, right? You should avoid that because it's a distraction from what you could be doing with your time, and it is engaging in that which is useless, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already provided it for you. He's already guaranteed it. This is a level of fasting of the prophets, the veracious, and those who are near God. Right? So this third fast is very difficult. You have to go through the steps, right? So if you're breaking your fast, stop breaking your fast. But then after that, this is like from step one to step two is major, right? So it's a major leap to going from just avoiding breaking your fast physically, to not committing any sins in the day, right? Try to go an entire day without committing a sin, right? It takes effort, and to maintain that, right, so that your fast is not broken with sin, is very difficult. So that is, but it's easy for those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes easy, right? وَإِنَّهُ لَيَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَلَيْهِ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says. So that second stage is a big leap from the first one, and this third stage, it will come from a continued adherence to that second stage. Right? It comes from a continued adherence to taqwa, because the heart starts to grow. It starts to build strength, and when the soul and the heart build a spiritual strength, then the thoughts will naturally begin to focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they won't be distracted as easily. Right? So in connection to the heart is the limbs, right? So the more control you have over your limbs and the sins that you do with your limbs, right, that will lead to a control over your heart, right? It should. So this is the level of the fasting of the prophets, the veracious, and those who are near God. We will not dwell on trying to describe this, other than to say that its deepest meaning is to focus our entire aspiration on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to turn away from what is other than God, glory be to Him, and to be completely enveloped by the meaning of His words. God revealed it. Then leave them in their empty discourse, amusing themselves. So, فَذَرْهُمْ فِي خَوْضِهِمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. So I'm trying to remember the exact ayah. Let's find it, because we have time. So this is going to be in قُلِ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ ذَرْهُمْ فِي خَوْضِهِمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. Yeah, there we go. Right, so say, Allah revealed it. Right? Say Allah, or just say Allah. Usually it's not revealed it. Say Allah. Right? So remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then leave them in their empty discourse and amusing themselves. Leave all of that which is distracting from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of the ghafla, right? So this is a direct connection to dhikr and ghafla. The more dhikr you do, the less ghafla you should have, right? So using dhikr to fight the ghafla. So all we can do is describe it with this ayah. There is not much else, right? Because this is something which is experienced and it takes time, right? So Imam Ghazali is now going to dive deeply into the second stage, because that is something that we can really look at. We can talk about all of the sins, we can talk about how to avoid them, right? But like I said, the actions of the heart are more fine-tuned, they're more refined, they're more hidden, they're more subtle. So it is just, as this ayah says, focusing on Allah, and leaving everything else besides it. As for the fasting of the elect, which is the fasting of the righteous, this consists in keeping the members of the body away from sin, and is accomplished through 6 practices. So he's now going to give 6 practices to avoid sin. This is really, really, really important. And in his Bidayat al-Hidayah, right, small abridgment and work on beginning to guidance, he talks about this actually, this type of fast, avoiding sin. But he's going to go into more detail in this chapter, because it's from the actual book itself. So the first practice, he says, is to lower the gaze and refrain from letting one's vision extend to anything blameworthy or disapproved of, or to extend to anything that preoccupies and distracts the heart from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So lowering the gaze from desires and from anything else which is haram to look at. So it's not just one's desires, that's haram to look at, right? You cannot look at um, uh, you know, unjust suffering, right, for no reason. You cannot look at someone with disdain. You cannot look at someone and in a judging manner. And he'll look into all of these things. So lowering one's gaze and avoiding to look at anything that distracts you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this is first and foremost a reminder to myself, right? So that's why I'll talk so frankly. But this is literally social media is literally this, right? So there's only a couple people who I've seen who use social media uh, for a truly beneficial manner, right? Like it's always connected to Quran or connected to learning the Deen and whatnot. But the majority of people and the majority of their practice with social media, with YouTube and Instagram and all these things, is ghafla. It's heedlessness. It's preoccupation from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And don't be tricked by thinking that you have to be caught up with the news and with the stock market and with the cryptocurrency trends and with everything that Trump is doing, right? To give yourself an excuse, right, to consume that which distracts you from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, right? There may be some things which are necessary to know, but you don't have to do that through an hour-long podcast. You don't have to learn that through, a garbage, a news channel. Right? You don't have to learn that through these things that are distracting you and have a lot of satanic undertones in some cases, and also just things that they're trying to put in, shove you to and push you to in terms of narrative, in terms of advertising, all of these things, right? So we have to really be careful, especially Ramadan, when we're trying to pull away from these things that are distracting us. You have to get off of these things unless it's absolutely necessary. You have to pull away, right? And if you're involved in activism, you're involved in these things, then simply just by posting that which supports your cause and can cause awareness is what's needed, right? So using things to their absolute bare necessity, that's it, right? الضرورات تقدر بقدرها, right? That's like a principle. So, right, I'm not making a blanket statement that no one can use Instagram, but you use it, right, to its absolute necessity, right? And that should be a principle that we start to build in our lives this Ramadan. As the Prophet ﷺ said, the gaze is one of the poisoned arrows of Iblis. May God curse him. Anyone who refrains from gazing at something out of the fear of Allah, Allah will give them faith with sweetness that person will find in his heart. Right? So the eyes are a direct passage to the heart, and it's something that the shaitan uses, right, to destroy people's hearts and to corrupt people. And this is why the industries of social media, of the news outlets, pornography, all of these things are so massive, $1 trillion industries because of the tremendous effect that it has on people and how many people they're pulling away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, television, of course, right? So, but if one refrains, if one is able to protect themselves, they'll find a sweetness in their heart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Jabir conveyed from Anas that the Prophet ﷺ said, 5 things will break the fast of a fasting person: lying, backbiting, slander, making a false oath, and gazing at something with lust, right? So talking about the inner realities of fasting, right? These actions of lying, of backbiting, and these things will break one's fast. And in it is included looking at something with lust, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, because this is something which has plagued our societies, plagued our schools and our the next generation. It's something which the previous generation didn't experience in the same way. They didn't have access to the same things, and it's only going to get worse with the improvements of AI and whatnot. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us, and it's really about setting a standard for yourself and your family that really, really, really lays clear the limits and boundaries of engagement with their phones and with this technology. And the clearer the boundaries, the clearer the limits are, the more protected the families will be, right? So you want to think about these things this Ramadan, and really practice it and hold it to heart, because not only is it kind of breaking our spiritual fast, but it is affecting us in ways that we don't truly understand yet, psychologically, neurologically, physically, mental health wise, and then spiritually, of course. And we have to really protect our eyes, right, from everything that displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it is one of, if not one of the greatest blessings that He's given us, right, in our body, is sight, right? So the proper understanding of shukr, right, is to use the limb for what it was created for. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created our eyes, right, to reflect on His creation, to look at the Quran, to read, to learn knowledge, to look at the righteous, to see the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, right? So that's what it should be used for. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Inshallah, tomorrow, on Thursday, we'll start to cover the other 5 steps, inshallah, to protecting ourselves this Ramadan. As I said, this chapter is quite short, so over time we'll pick up speed, and inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq, the ability to finish this month, and to actually practice on that which we're reading, that which we're trying to understand, that we're not just hearing it and not benefiting from it, that we're hearing it, internalizing it, working on ourselves, practicing, right, and then feeling that change that we're all looking for. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi